Hey, True Believers. Chris Mack coming at you today with Uncanny X-Men 248. And this was a pretty good read. Like I said, a lot of people said that as Claremont's era kind of went on, they said it sort of stagnated. But I don't think so. But that's just my personal opinion. And then just for me too, I think that I find this issue special is with finally acquiring this issue, I finally have all of the main, not like the annuals, etc., so forth, but 94 through, what was it, 280 something, but I have the entire Chris Claremont Uncanny X-Men run. So I'm just like, yes! I never thought it would happen, but woot woot. And you open it up, and I love how this starts. But before we even talk about the gorgeousness of this panel, let's talk about who worked on this book. The print date was September 1989. This is Chris Claremont, writer. Jim Lee, pencils. Dan Green, inker. Glynis Oliver, colorist. Tom Orzanowski doing the lettering. Bob Harris was the editor, and Tom DeFalco was Lord High Executioner. So again, miss how they'd always do the little fill in the fans for the fun. But anyway, that's just me. And from what I understand, this was Jim Lee kind of just doing like a guest penciling at the time, like fill-in penciling. So this is kind of his early work. And it looks, even though this was his early time, it looks like his work. I mean, this is called The Cradle Will Fall, and we see Logan just jumping into action. It says his name's Wolverine. He's the best there is at what he does. And then we see him get flayed with bullets, and it says, "It isn't enough." Now that's how you open a book. You're like, whoa, wait a minute. And this is where we reveal the Reavers, Donald Pierce alongside Lady Deathstrike. And they're planning to take out Logan because they all have a vendetta against him. So this is sort of a, what is it called, an interlude before we get into the main story, because this builds up later in Uncanny X-Men 251. And it's just a welcome sight to see the Reavers, Bone Crusher and Skull Buster and Reese and all of them. They were just an interesting band of characters. And then this was kind of another semi-interlude, because we see Spiral and Longshot's kind of having this, I guess you could call it an existential crisis, because Spiral attacks him. And as we remember, when Longshot came to this universe, he didn't really have a whole lot of memory of who he was. And then we get another tease at Mojo. And just kind of seeing a Mojo Longshot hybrid is absolutely terrifying. And in this vision, or whatever it is, because it's not 100% clear, but we see Spiral saying, "Never fails. Should have known better. No matter what happens, Longshot, you always kill the one you love." And then you hear, in the way that Claremont writes it, you hear Mojo's insane laughter, which in my head I hear it from the animated series, but that wasn't around at this time, so you had to make up your own thoughts. But he goes, "How can that be, my dead, decayed darlings? I'm still here." And just that facial expression, you see him, the claws pulling his eyeballs open, like the Luduccio effect, or technique, I think is what they called it in A Clockwork Orange, the one that forced Alex to watch all that ultra-violence. But that's what that always reminds me of. But after that, you see, like, Storm's kind of having this vision from Gateway, and he's trying to put pieces of himself together. And he's like, where did I come from? What's my purpose? And he's like, it isn't enough, Storm, for me to be a real person. He goes, too many holes for a person to be whole. There has to be more of me somewhere. I guess I better go find it. I don't want to leave, Storm. You're my friends. But I can't be your friend till there's an all of me to be. Whew! So from what I understand, this is where Longshot leaves the team. And it's just a very heartbreaking moment, because you know how Longshot always this happy-go-lucky, carefree guy. And now all of a sudden, he's like, I need to find out who I am. Where am I? Questions that, you know, we as human beings ask ourselves. So just a very poignant moment that I really enjoyed about this book. And then we get into... Now, for as weird as this character is, I always enjoy Peter and Nanny. Peter and the Orphan, or Nanny and the Orphan Maker. They're kind of random, but it's in a fun way. So she's saying that she needs to save the X-Men because there's an oncoming threat. And Claremont doesn't reveal what it is right up close. You know, she just decides she's going to go to Australia because she knows they're still alive after the Siege Perilous, so she attacks Psylocke first. And it's kind of weird how she gets her. For all you old school Nintendo players, if y'all remember the Adventures of Lolo, where it was kind of like a puzzle game, she always reminds me of Lolo. And then we get a kind of a funny moment with Havoc and Dazzler, and they're talking about how the team's kind of leaving, because apparently they know that Longshot's leaving. And before they can get any more serious, you know, Dazzler's trying to throw some levity in there. The tension is broke as Alex goes flying off the edge of the cliff. It's kind of a funny moment. They stumble across Nanny's ship, and what I like is Allison's like, Alex, come on, no further, okay? This sort of reminds me too much of Alien. I thought we had the pizzazz, the style to handle anything. And before you can finish, they get attacked by Peter, and he's like, oh boy, it worked, Nanny, just like you said. We clobbered them easy. And you kind of think it feels sort of Looney Tune-ish, but if y'all remember those two cats that were always after Tweety, and the fat one was like, Abbott, let me at it. Just that reminds me what that is. And it is funny nonetheless, because Peter looks like this big, menacing thing, but you know, he has the mind of a child. So it's just a really weird juxtaposition. So as Nanny goes across for all the other X-Men, the only one that's able to fight against it is Storm, showing just how strong of a leader she is. Now, before I go any further with this, there's one panel I skipped over that I do want to reference. Before Colossus gets attacked, he's going through the food pantry. This is very strange. There are less supplies here than should be. Either some of us are eating like pigs, and then wham, and then a fight ensues that I want you all to read, and it kind of shows what happens to the teammates. But the reason I'm referencing will be clear here in a moment. Now back to what's interesting is how Storm is fighting this mental command that Psylocke's throwing at her. Why is Psylocke throwing it at her? Read the book. But just the power of Aurora. That's why she's always been one of my favorite X-Men. You know, Colossus kind of sort of trying to fight Nanny's control. He's saying, Nanny doesn't want to hurt you, Storm. This is for your own good. And she just clobbers him. She goes, I decide what is for my own good, little brother. And I alone. And even though these are like faraway panels, you know, the art team does a wonderful job of showing Storm's power and what she is capable of. Now, here we are. When I was talking about the food pantry with Colossus, this is what I mean. If we go back to Uncanny X-Men 244, which is the first appearance of Jubilee, remember how she said she jumped into Gateway's portal? Well, she's sort of been hiding in and out of the X-Men's headquarters here. And she's like, sounds pretty intense outside. Better them than me. And while they're all occupied being ultra-physical, perfect opportunity for me to raid the pantry. And Nanny tries to get Jubilee. And it's funny, I mean, look at how Nanny just shroom in the perspective of how her hands come at the panel, and then Jubilee, being a gymnast, is just able to leap away. She goes, grabby old roly-poly, ain't you? Pardon me, I need that. What a grab, what a gal. Into the bag for it, and down my rabbit hole for me. Bye now. And then it's kind of funny how Jubilee deters Nanny. But I just wanted to point that out, that at this point Jubilee is kind of hiding in the X-Men's Australian basement or wherever. And what really just still gets me as I'm reading this, I mean, this looks like how when Lee took on the X-Men book, it looks like, he got better, but you could see the beginnings here in 89 in this issue. And I don't want to give any more of this book away. It is absolutely beautiful. Now, Havoc is able to break free of Nanny's hypnosis or whatever it is she puts them under. How? Again, read the book, but just look at how furious Havoc is for his mind being played with, and how his power is just in full on display. He goes to attack Nanny's ship, and even though it seems simplistic in the colors, the line art, the nice little Kirby crackle going on there, just gorgeous. Now, because of Alex's outburst of rage here, there are repercussions. What are they? I know I said it, and I'll say it again. Read this comic book. I miss storytelling like this. It's been a long time since I've read good X-Men. I think the last decent X-Men arc that I read was the latter half of Matthew Rosenberg's Uncanny X-Men, which we will eventually go over. But pick this up, and I want to first and foremost thank my buddy Isaac, who was the one that hooked me up with this. I appreciate it, brother. I've been looking high and low for this issue, so I'm so excited that I finally have the Claremont era of Uncanny X-Men finished, and now I'm kind of on the fence if I want to do the same thing with New Mutants. So we'll see. If you guys want to see more New Mutants, let me know down in the comments. Speaking of which, if you've enjoyed this book, as I just said a moment ago, please first and foremost support your local comic shop and pick up a copy. And if you've enjoyed this review, we really would appreciate it if you take a moment to hit like, share, and subscribe. Helps us out more than you could possibly know. And if you won't mind hitting that fancy little X bell next to subscribe, that way as we continue to upload content, you guys can come to the channel. And again, we just love talking with y'all and hearing your feedback down in the comments below, or our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, thank you so much for stopping by. Hope you all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.